Hello beautiful beings, just a quick hello from Cornwall and I will show you St Michael's Mount looking spectacular over there. Can you see it? Looking gorgeous. Anyway, I hope you're all well. I hope you're having a gorgeous day wherever you are. But I think it's time for a deeper video on what's really going on with everyone just now. You know, everybody is at a different level of consciousness. Everyone's at a different level of remembering their memories. But in remembering your memories, you are meant to remember your past lives. You're meant to have access to those emotional Akashic records. So the fact that you're being guided to be told, oh, you don't need to know your Akashic records, you don't need to know your past lives, you don't need to heal your inner child, you don't need to heal your ancestral story. This is all deception and delusion. And the fact that all you need to connect to is galactic beings is the biggest psyop on the planet in spirituality right now. The level of deception that's going on is so huge for humanity. And there are people, that's why I call them spiritual grifters. There are people falling out amongst themselves about who's right, who's wrong, you know, and these are people who are relying on swathes and swathes of followers. These people do not do one-to-one sessions with you. They do not offer one-to-one help and guidance to help you heal your emotional past, the subconscious mind. We have to heal our emotional past. We're being spellcasted into deception and delusion at vast rates right now, and you have to have your wits about you, and you have to have your own soul responsibility. So when you see people kind of just wanting to not even connect with their own galactic beings, they're just hanging on the word of people who are channeling galactic beings, or worse, claim to have implants from galactic beings. Yet these people woke up 4 or 5 years ago and they didn't heal their own personal inner child, you know, so they haven't accessed all their Akashic past life records and taken them to the 0 point field. They haven't reclaimed the trauma of their inner child. They haven't worked to discern to whether they've got entities attached. They haven't necessarily looked at their ancestral healing story that needs to be done. This is the work. It's deep, and there are layers and layers an onion. And yes, the planetary energy will help you to do this, and if it doesn't help you to do it, you will be exiting, because this is the work that we have to do now, and it is deep, and not everybody wants to do it. Everybody is invited to do this work, but not everybody wants to do it. So many people are so more interested in listening to channeled messages. I say channeled even if they're coming from implants. And yes, there is a lot of great wisdom in some of the channeled information. You know, when I first had my awakening 25 years ago, beings were channeling information to me, but I never, ever, ever made that information public, because I was never sure that it was correct information. So I let it go. And most of those beings, I spoke to Anu. I spoke to a being who said it was stopping the children of light from entering the portal of Marduk. I spoke to many of these beings. I think they were grifters. I think they were deceivers. I'm not sure they were actually telling the absolute truth for humanity. You know, I had to find my own truth. I stayed grounded. And then I know as you age, I'm going to talk at tangents now. I know as you age, as a woman my age, there are many, you know, high profile figures right now, the same age as me. I'm 55. You know, the lure and attraction to want to put toxins and chemicals in your body to, you know, not age so rapidly, not have so many wrinkles, keep this eternal youth. But you have to be very careful that by doing that, you don't end up looking like a woman who is vastly younger than her age, which could be a nice thing, but you end up looking like you're the same as a transgendered man who is becoming a woman. You want to be very careful that your look does not emulate that look by the fact of doing surgery, filling your fillers in your lips, filling fillers in your face, you know, making yourself look a certain way where you become a cartoon character. So, and I say this because I want you to consider when you start doing all this work and you start going on the synthetic path, who are the beings you're going to be speaking to on the synthetic path? On the synthetic, non-natural path, who do you think you will be speaking to? Do you really think that you're going to be speaking to the most highest vibrational beings that exist in all dimensions of existence? When they see your vulnerabilities, when they see your fear of aging, when they see your fear of change, and you're ruled by fear, and then you're putting chemical toxins in your body, but you like to eat organic food. It's an antithesis of each other. It makes no sense. Yet this is what we're seeing. And we're seeing many of you, you're hanging on the word of these people, be they male or female. You're hanging on their words as if they know the absolute truth of humanity, and they haven't got a clue. They're channeling beings, grifter beings, giving them information as if it's the absolute truth. And it may well not be the absolute truth. And you haven't worked on yourself. They haven't worked on themselves. So what is the fear of going into our past lives? What is the fear of facing the ones where people were victims to you? Then we see the ones where you were the victimizer. Then we take it into the 0 point field and we create a neutrality on it. Talking to your inner child, we're going back to being in the womb, maybe trauma that happened to you that you have no memory of. But when the memory comes forward, you're like, oh my goodness, I do remember that. I remember that. You know, the events you see, that the emotions that come forward, we're healing all that so that you can be really grounded. You can be a real sovereign being in your own right in this lifetime. And that is not for the faint-hearted. Then we're looking at ancestral stories. And it's not easy. It's easy to drop into lower dimensional energy. It's easy to, they call it spiritual bypassing. Let's just cast a spiritual bypass over that and just start connecting to a load of galactic beings and hang on their every word and believe they're telling me the truth of humanity and they're telling me the true history of humanity. You've no idea whether they're telling the truth of humanity or not. All I can say that I know will bring an absolute truth for everybody is, as we heal our emotional Akashic records, that is the timeline of our own soul, and we bring all those shards of our own soul back into the portal of our physical body, we evolve our consciousness. And as we expand our consciousness from an expanded level of consciousness in yourself, you allow other people to have their truth. You know, you're like, okay, I don't agree with your truth, but it's your truth based on where your vibration and your consciousness is at. You know, you don't need to go around bad-mouthing the other people who are channeling information, because it's just channeled information. It's not the absolute truth. You're not healing the inner child. You're not healing the ancestral story. You're not healing the past lives. You're not accessing the past lives. You're just saying everybody else is wrong and you're right. And that's not allowing people to find their truth and have their truth. So we have to do this inner work on ourselves, which people are avoiding at vast costs, at the price of their own physical health and well-being. And in the timelines, you can go into previous timelines, and I've seen false information in the timelines with people, but you can tell it's because they've not healed their own inner child. So when you heal the inner child, you access more accurate information, and you keep going through it again and again, making sure this information is accurate. You also go into seeing the gravitas of the totality of that life, of how that's impacted the whole of your lifetime since then, and how you've repeated patterns in other lifetimes. You know, you just keep doing the same Groundhog Day because there's an avoidance of taking our sovereignty back. You know, there's a need to believe you got a husband on another planet. You know, I've seen that with men as well. I've seen men who believe they've got a wife in another planet, another star system. You know, and when I knuckled it down with them, they had a deeply wounded inner child from this lifetime. And they had entities, maybe they are really beings that exist in other dimensions of reality, but they had beings attached telling them this information. And because they didn't either know or want to heal their inner child, most people are on the run from their inner child. They really, really don't want to face their shadow trauma. I don't know why. I don't know why it's so hard for humanity to do that, when for me personally, it's been my biggest joy to face the shadow. You know, when you face the shadow, you may well be laying on the floor crying and sobbing and releasing it, but you expand your consciousness. You become a more balanced, philosophical person with wisdom who's able to step back from the narrative, see what's going on and not engage in the drama and go, you know what? There is so many people giving misinformation. You know, I see people giving misinformation about sacred sites. They're making videos giving misinformation about sacred sites. I mean, it's laughable. They haven't done their research. They are proper spiritual grifters. And even this talk now of 3 Atlas, whatever that is, I don't even want to go into the energy of that. They do it for clicks. They do it for views. It's the chat of the moment. So they make videos about this, videos about that. And none of them offer one-to-one work. And if they do it for a couple of years and then they drop out. They don't keep doing it 25 years down the line. I've been doing this 25 years with many of you. And I've never been as good as I am at helping you, because I have vast amounts of experience to help you heal your emotional trauma. Yet people are more interested in buying books. And even if you buy really good spiritual books, you can intellectually understand something, but you've not experienced it. You know, so I see people at workshops coming where they intellectually understand stuff, but they haven't applied it to themselves. They haven't done the inner work. They're like a parrot paraphrasing what they've read in a book. You know, and a lot of these people that you're following their vast books, they've plagiarized other people's work from 20, 30, 40 years ago. And then they've rehashed it for now to share that information. And you think it's new information, and it's not. It's plagiarized stuff. You know, people cannot see through the illusion that's being cast out there because you haven't healed your own inner self. And when you don't heal your inner self, you're so gullible to being taken in by the stuff. And it's painful to hear what I'm saying. It's painful to have to face that you've been delusional and you've been duped and you've been following the Pied Piper to the wrong planet or to the wrong information or to the wrong dimension. It's not pleasant to wake up to that information. Let me see if any of you've got anything to say about any of this. Hold on one second. Let's have a look. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I hope that what I'm saying sort of has a resonance of truth in the field for you. Because I'm just sad what's happening for people. It will make no difference to my personal reality. You know, I'm doing my own thing over here, continuing doing my own thing. And, you know, I see people with mental health diagnoses. And, you know, the problem with that is once you get a label, the ego likes the label of I have this affliction. You know, I am diagnosed with this affliction. And then, you know, if that diagnosis stops you from being able to even have the inner tenacity to get out of bed, then you've got even bigger problems. You know, please don't try and work with me if you're able-bodied, and you haven't got the consciousness to go, you know, I need to get up and get dressed each day. And it is an effort some days. We're all going through things, but we have to have the self-motivation to motivate ourselves to get up, get showered, get dressed each day and push forward. That has to come, sorry, I'm moving my phone like a bobblehead. That has to come from inside us. Nobody can wave a magic wand and heal you to get out of your bed. Okay, if you've got physical afflictions, I understand that, but you have to push through. There has to be a personal level of responsibility to push through the deepest, darkest depression that you have. And when you do that, the energy or the entities that are trying to tell you, stay in your bed, don't do anything, don't have a shower, why don't you stay in your bed? You know, those little voices telling you that, you kick them into touch. You're like, go away, I am going to get up, I am going to proceed forward, you know, I am going to take responsibility for myself. So I will be making a longer video on YouTube very soon. My inner disclosure video has gone quite well. I am seeing clients in Glastonbury 7th, 8th, 9th of November for deep inner emotional healing work. I may well have dates before that, but I appreciate that a lot of people need a bit of heads up time to plan the logistics, have to take time off work, you know. That's the other thing. Consider, are you really happy with your job? Are you happy with your relationship? Maybe it's not that you need to leave your relationship. You know, I see many people thinking they're going to leave their relationship. You don't need to leave the relationship. They actually need to leave that version of themselves interacting with the relationship, because that's their wounded inner self that's interacting in that relationship. And I often say to people, you know, if you're having trouble in a relationship, think back to the day you met this person. Go back to where you were emotionally on that day, because the clues are always there. If you go back to where was it emotionally on that day, and where was my thought process? What was I drawing in on that day? That's how I drew that person into my reality, based on where my consciousness was on that day and time. Same with ETs. Where was my consciousness on that day and time? That's how I drew those ETs or lower dimensional astral beings into my reality. And then they may be giving you the runaround, feeding you misinformation, affecting your consciousness. And I know, because I've been doing this work for 25 years and I've seen amazing stories of healing and transformation come in for you. But the key is going in to heal the inner child. The inner child has to have her voice or his voice heard. You have to become the parent of the inner child. Who else is going to parent this child better than the adult version of you? You are the most trustworthy person the inner child can have. You're the most honest and reliable person. And in many cases, we are retiring your biological parents to just be other flawed humans having a physical experience. You know, we're allowing them to be a soul in their own right. You are now a 40 or 50-year-old adult. You don't necessarily need them to be your parent. They'll always be your parent. There's always that gorgeous bond and that love and that journey, even if it's challenging. But we have to work with it to heal it, to take it into the 0 point field, so that we can make more enlightened choices for ourselves going forward. So, just sharing this information. There's so much distortion, and there's so many psyops out there, and there's so many psyop operators out there, and you don't know who half of these people are. And that's why they don't offer one-to-one sessions. They don't have the skill set to do it. That's not why they're here. That's not what their agenda is. They're here to create misinformation and distraction and keep you from doing the deep inner emotional healing work. They don't want you doing that. They want you following some galactic Narnia story to the nth degree, buying merchandise and t-shirts and hats and caps and carrier bags. They want you buying merch, and they want you buying their books. They don't want you doing the deep inner work, and they certainly don't want to offer sessions doing deep inner work because they haven't got the skill set to offer it. So ponder on that. Ponder on, who are these people? Do you know their backstory? Do you know who their parents were? Do they share information about that? They don't. They don't, because they don't want you to know who they are and their backstories. We don't know who they are, you know, so you really, really must start thinking about that. And I'm just an example of someone who I do post about my real struggles, my real experiences. You know, I don't cover it all up. You know, I'm in Cornwall today. This is how I'm feeling. It's not that I was in Cornwall last week and now I'm making a video pretending I'm here today because I'm too terrified of people knowing exactly where I am, which is a huge bunch of them. They don't want you knowing where they are. They have to have bodyguards at conferences. I mean, get real. I mean, this is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And you need to kind of consider how nonsensical that is, you know, it really is. So, sending everybody love, sharing my truth, you know, I am going to my shipping container in a moment after I've had a little coffee, maybe gone and sat in a lovely little place for a coffee in Marazion. Many of you know I used to have a house in Marazion, so I know this land. If I start talking about it, I know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking because I've pitched up and read a book and then forgot what I read and then spouting misinformation. I lived where St. Michael, see St. Michael's Mount there? I lived in this village over here at one point in a very, very haunted house on the ley lines. And yeah, was quite an experience. And I think I was there to help the energy of the house, and it was a wonderful time, and it was time to let it go. And that was probably, when did I let it go? 2012, I think. So back to the plot, back to the leylands, back to the stone circles, which I may well trot off to a stone circle later. I may or may not film it, but I'm here working. If you're interested in doing sessions with me, I have guided meditations on my website as well. But if you want to do sessions with me online daily for the emotional Akashic records and soul guidance, that is 9 a.m. UK time to 8 p.m. UK time daily. They are half an hour and an hour sessions. The work I do in person is regression, and they are 2-hour sessions. They can never be anything less. They are 2-hour sessions, and they are in Glastonbury, London, Cornwall, because I'm here right now, and also in Cheshire occasionally. But you have to commit to the day and the time, not keep moving around, because if I give you the day and the time, I'm going to build my schedule around your sessions. So if you cancel, it changes everything. So, you know, really maybe do an online session before you decide to come in person. And for those of you who are flying in, because I have people who fly in for sessions, I will give you a printout of the airports and how to get here, which I wouldn't say fly into Cornwall necessarily. I would say fly into London and either get the train to Castlecary for Glastonbury. Castlecary is the nearest train station, or you can get a coach called Berry's Coaches, which goes from Hammersmith in London. There are National Express coaches as well. Or if you just fly into London, and when I'm in London, you do sessions there. It's pretty easy to get from most of Europe to London or to Glastonbury. Glastonbury isn't the easiest place. Cheshire is when I'm dealing with my parents' house. I'm offering sessions there, and Manchester Airport is the nearest airport, and Crewe Railway Station is the nearest railway station. So let's all just breathe out. There's a lot of negativity in the world, and we don't have to listen to it all. We get to spellcast our own reality, because what you think, what vibration you hold, is the PIN code, the access code to your own personal reality. And everyone will try and engage you in their reality, and they want you to back up their beliefs about the world. But you get to choose your beliefs. You get to choose your high vibration reality. You get to exist in what you want to exist in, not not what the others are existing in, and you know, their beliefs about health or well-being. You get to choose your own choice of what you choose to do for you. So just have a little see what everyone's saying. Sorry if I sound quite passionate or whatever. I just get tired of what's going on out there. So thank you all for listening. I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I will be oscillating between Cornwall and Glastonbury until probably the end of the month for a myriad of reasons, and then I will be going to Cheshire to do a little bit more clearing on my parents' house, which I would say to any of you, if you find yourself in my situation, pace yourself. Don't feel you've got to get rid of everything straight off. You know, just take a breath and decide at the pace you're going to do for your own mental well-being, your physical well-being, and to not stress yourself out. Don't overexert yourself when you're grieving and you're processing. Do it at your pace, not what other people tell you. Do what's right for you and spend time in nature to heal. So thanks for listening. It's Andrea Foulkes. My website's andreafoulkes.com. I think the link's below. Much love. I really have faith that if we stay in our hearts, stay in love, you know, make changes in our lives, that when we identify things that are not working for us, our lives will come into balance and alignment, and the healing of the trauma in our past will start to call and knock on your door that you need to resolve that. So much love, many blessings, and now have a beautiful day wherever you are. Much love, and bye from St. Michael's Mount in Cornwall. Much love, bye.